So, you know how FNaF used to be all about the paranormal? Haunted animatronics, vengeful spirits, semi-immortal protagonists, and what do we classify him as? A zombie, a haunted animatronic? I mean, what actually is he? Not the point, but what is the point is that somehow we've lost a lot of this paranormal and supernatural focus and ended up with just sci-fi villains. Now, I have no problem with sci-fi. I love sci-fi, and it's always been part of the series. We have super high-tech animatronics that would be a real challenge to design, even with today's technology, potentially as far back as the 70s and 80s. We have things like tiny magic circles that trick you into hallucinating by screaming at you just right. We have perfectly convincing, lifelike animatronics that are nearly indistinguishable from humans. The long and short of it is that the focus on the paranormal, horror, and tragedy aspect of the game has kind of fallen to the wayside in favor of cool or wacky new technology. Our villains are an AI, a person being controlled by an AI, and potentially whatever this is. Not entirely convinced it can be considered a villain, though. Our villain used to be a crazy, mad scientist type of madman experimenting with the agony and deaths of children in an attempt to control life itself, who is also at one point something between a haunted animatronic and a literal zombie, fragmenting the spirits of the dead in his twisted research. Our protagonist was a semi-immortal, ghost juice-fueled angsty himbo desperate to atone for the mistakes of his past and prevent further harm being caused by his family. Why did this all change? When did we go from trapped spirits to sentient AI? Well, what if we didn't? Hear me out, because I know a few of you might already be jumping to the idea that I think this is literally Afton. That's not what this is about. This video is about this nasty freak. Okay, yeah, he's far from the grossest thing we've seen in this franchise, but something about specifically this piece of stuffing stuck to bro's cheek just freaks me out, okay? It looks icky and I don't like it. As a lot of you are probably already aware, there's a theory floating around that the people the Mimic tore up might be haunting the Mimic, or maybe the Blob. It depends on who you ask. That's not the theory I'm telling you about today, but I want to head off the idea that my theory might negate this one. Just because I'm about to explain how the Mimic Endo was haunted before it killed any of those people, doesn't mean that I don't think their agony could attach to it. I mean, agonized spirits have been shown to attach themselves to pre-haunted objects before. Yes, I'm looking at you, Peepaw, and you know what? Naming the vengeful spirit would open up a whole can of worms in my comment section that I don't know if I want to deal with right now. Moving on. I understand how it might seem super unlikely for the Mimic to be haunted before it even kills anyone, but it's far from impossible. Sure, no children have been stuffed into this guy. I mean, that'd be one heck of a logistical nightmare trying to figure out how to even do that. But we have several examples of kids haunting animatronics that they didn't get put inside of. So there's ample evidence to show animatronics can become haunted without having a kid actually inside them, and without even being the cause of death. In these instances, or at least the instances I believe to be most relevant, the victim has a pre-existing connection to the animatronic. We'll start with a more ambiguous example. It's ambiguous because some people definitely do believe that this kid got stuffed. The crying child, Dave. Now, Dave is somehow both terrified of and best friends with Fredbear. The animatronic is a big no-go for the kid, all the animatronics and costumes seem to be, but he loves psychic friend Fredbear. The actual details of his death are among the more, let's call it highly debated, things in the franchise. Some people believe he inhabits Golden Freddy, and others believe he goes on to haunt his plushie. If you believe he's in the plushie Fredbear, well, that's honestly easier for me. I mean, obviously the plush didn't kill him, and he's not inside that thing. It's a clear-cut example of exactly what I'm talking about. For those of us who believe he inhabits the Springlock suit, things can get a bit messier, literally. Some think he inhabits the suit because he first haunted the plush, and then the plush was somehow united with the suit. Kind of like how Charlie works in the books. She's an animatronic, but there's a haunted doll inside her. This still tracks for my point, but I wanted to call it out for those of you who believe this, because I feel like it just doesn't get acknowledged very much. Others believe he haunts the suit directly, but the reason why can vary. Either he's in the suit because it happened to be what killed him, even though he probably died somewhere else, or he was brought home from the hospital in his coma and shoved into the springlock suit by his father, who then purposefully triggered the springlocks and watched his son drown in his own blood. Like I said, messy. The first of these is still along the same lines as my point, even though the animatronic is responsible for his death, and there's probably still some blood inside it or something. I mean, we all know Fazbear isn't putting in the effort to get that thing clean. The second one, it just isn't an example. It doesn't prove or disprove anything here. But let's move on, because I have a couple more examples that are definitely unambiguous. The puppet, inhabited by Charlie Emminy, Henry's daughter. She was killed outside of the restaurant by William Afton, so the puppet wasn't responsible for her death. The puppet was one of her father's creations and was specifically meant to be watching her before it got trapped in its box, so we have the pre-existing connection aspect. And we also know that Charlie's body definitely wasn't put inside of the puppet. I actually think she started possessing the puppet immediately after she was killed, before the puppet even made it to her. I mean, think about it. All the puppet knows is that Charlie made it outside, but it somehow knows exactly where to find her and goes straight to her corpse? And how can it even make it there with its systems failing so drastically? The answer seems obvious. It was actively getting possessed, and Charlie knew where she was. She likely also knew that the puppet was supposed to protect her, so when she was attacked, it would have been the first thing she thought to call out for. I mean, we don't see her parents anywhere in this game. Were they even in the building? Who knows? Man, the 80s were a different time. You'd get arrested for neglect for that kind of thing nowadays. The final example I want to point out, although far from the final example across the franchise, is from the books. This doesn't require the books to be canon, and it doesn't require them to not be canon. Only necessary attitude towards the books is allowing what happens in them to inform what we deem possible in the universe of the games, which has been a widely accepted perspective for like so many years now. In The Real Jake, we are introduced to a young boy named Jake. He is, unfortunately, very ill. His father is in the military and overseas. Despite his mother being absent, he has a very kind woman looking after him full-time. Every day, his father calls in on a special radio inside of an animatronic doll that's locked in a cabinet across the room. Jake isn't told that it's his father and names the doll Simon. Every day, he's asked by the doll what the real Jake did that day, the one that isn't sick. Jake then imagines a wonderful day playing outside or going on adventures, things that he isn't able to do. His caretaker never lets him see the doll, but every night after he goes to sleep, she goes and marks the doll in some way to represent the adventures the real Jake had. Predictably, Jake forms a strong bond to this doll. When his father ends up dying, Jake's condition quickly deteriorates, and he ends up passing so quickly that they don't even have the chance to move him to palliative care. No one notices the Simon doll has disappeared from the cabinet. It's later confirmed that Jake did, in fact, possess the doll. This doll didn't cause his death, and he had no physical contact with it. The doll was simply nearby. This is a direct example that this kind of possession is absolutely possible in the world of Five Nights at Freddy's. A definitive, real example of a child possessing an animatronic that was just nearby because they loved it. Keep this in mind. It's a surprise tool that can help us later. So, what exactly do these have to do with the Mimic? Well, let's dissect it, and boy do we have a lot to dissect, because I've never actually summarized these stories on my channel. We get key information about the Mimic in the Storyteller and the Mimic. I know, big shock that we get information about the Mimic in the Mimic. In the Storyteller, we open on a bigwig corporate meeting led by a 35-year-old man who has nicknamed himself Burrows, who happens to be so full of himself it kinda makes me want to throw up. He thinks it'd be a great idea to fire the Pizzaplex's entire creative team and give the job to a fancy computer, even turning it into an attraction in the Pizzaplex and letting it decide what it's gonna look like. Cut to Edwin, 64 years old and the only person in the room that doesn't function as a yes man because Burroughs isn't legally allowed to fire him. He also seems to be the only one that has an ounce of sense, which means he's outvoted. He hates Mr. Burroughs' plan. The only addition he makes to the project is the type of tree they're going to hide the storyteller inside of. A baobab tree. Except Mr. Burroughs hates children and anything that doesn't look like a clown threw up on it, so he wants to give it a bright yellow trunk and rainbow branches with LED strips. No one will tell Edwin anything about the project, and he isn't allowed to go inside the tree to see the progress. He snoops around a bit and finds out when the construction guys are bringing the actual storyteller parts to put them inside the tree, so he stakes it out. Now, it should be noted that Edwin has heart problems, which come up during the stakeout because apparently Edwin has a strong phobia of white tigers with heterochromia. This almost gets him caught because seeing the design of the storyteller sends him into full-blown flashbacks of something. The book doesn't tell us much besides that it was loud and there was blood. It does get back to Mr. Burroughs that Edwin was there, and we see him watching the scene unfold via security footage. Later, Edwin literally runs into Mr. Burroughs and asks him about the storyteller's programming. Burroughs tells him it's a template-style software that rearranges pieces of previously created stories into new ones, and refuses to give any more information. Edwin is unable to prevent the storyteller from going live and notices problems right away. The animatronics around the Pizzaplex begin to act up, having their worst traits amplified. Burroughs dismisses Edwin's concerns, and not long after, the Pizzaplex starts getting a lot of weird glitches. Still, no one will listen to Edwin. Now, Edwin is desperate to see what's going on inside that tree because he has a terrible feeling about the storyteller. Since the project is finished, all the details are going to be stored in a warehouse that he happens to be allowed into. So he flirts with the nice desk lady and then goes to do some research. In the design documentation, he does find what he's looking for. There's an extendo walkway behind a fake wall at the top of the roller coaster. That will take him to the top of the tree, where he'll find a secret entrance. Once inside the tree, after having another episode in response to seeing the tiger head up close, he snaps himself out of it and finds a computer terminal in the wall. He doesn't need the password to see that the program is called Mimic 1. This is apparently what he was afraid of the entire time. He starts sneaking into the tree every night, and losing sleep to do it. There's a scene of him waking up in his rundown apartment and reminiscing a bit. During this we learn that 40 years ago, Edwin was a brilliant engineer, a creative genius. He was destined for great things. His wife had told him every morning when he was 24 that his company was going to change the world. Then she died in childbirth, and Edwin became a single father to a newborn who never stopped crying, but that he loved all the same. We then cut to Burroughs. He's at the Pizzaplex because someone besides Edwin finally noticed the machines acting weird, and he is certain that it's all Edwin's fault. Burroughs hates everything. He hates the way the Pizzaplex smells, he hates the crowd, he doesn't like the garish lighting, the pizza is only all right. He hates the noise. I'm starting to think there isn't much this guy enjoys besides belittling people and flaunting his money. He sees the animatronics act up, and, on his way out, he trips on a toddler and eats floor tile. From his post-fall vantage point, he gets an idea as to how Edwin might be accessing the storyteller. Burroughs has the engineers point cameras at the top of the tree and give him a panel on his desk that lets him lock it down. This includes all of the hermetically sealed doors. Once Edwin is deep inside the tree, he locks the whole thing down. And he knows that this prevents airflow, and it's going to end with Edwin dying of oxygen deprivation, and he does it anyways. Then he leaves to go scuba diving with a model over the weekend. Classic rich guy stuff, I guess. When he returns, he's worried that Edwin's body might have been found, but it hasn't. In fact, Edwin seems to have not made a peep after being locked in the tree, which Burroughs finds strange. After a couple of days, he gets it into his head that Edwin must have escaped, so he goes to check it out. When he steps inside the tree, he finds a bunch of colored construction paper. Every sheet of paper was covered with odd stick drawings and strange symbols that were not at all familiar to Mr. Burroughs. Squiggles, squares, loops, triangles within triangles. Mathematical equations, nonsensical ones from what Mr. Burroughs could tell, were tangled up in the symbols. And written over the top of all of this, on nearly every sheet of construction paper, were 2 words. I'm sorry. Burroughs finds Edwin dead and frozen in a sitting position, crayon in hand, having died in the middle of drawing. The sight freaks Burroughs out so badly that he tries to run away, finds he's locked inside the tree. He fails to get out, and his cries for help can't be heard over the sounds of the Pizzaplex. Now, that was pretty long, I know. The most important information that's going to pop up on the screen for you now, and I'll keep them on screen as we cover the mimic so that you can reference them. Don't worry, this one's even longer. The first scene shows Edwin working and his 4-year-old son David interrupting him. It gives us a lot of information about their situation. It's early March, they're in an old lace factory, the 2 of them live there. Edwin struggles to balance work and parenting. Edwin and his late wife Fiona acquired this building and a home 5 years prior when his business was new. He ended up selling the home. Edwin is an engineer. He and his wife had been able to afford the large purchases because Edwin had invented something akin to a Roomba that sold pretty dang well at first. Well enough for him to found a company in the early 70s, right out of college. Edwin also married Fiona, fresh out of college, and she got pregnant shortly after. We also learned that there is a rack holding a circus-like array of animals and other character costumes. Then we learn that David cried a lot as a baby, like a lot. Apparently this started right when he was born, which happened in the fall. And it's made very clear that Edwin is barely hanging on mentally. He takes David up for a nap, and we get our first look at David's small, stuffed, white tiger with heterochromia. That sounds familiar. He returns to the nondescript yellow chick he'd been working on. A man named Fitz, not to be confused with Fritz, delivers projects from Fazbear Entertainment. He turns costumes into entertainment robots for them because a Fazbear executive named Grant Starling had negotiated for Fazbear to buy out Edwin's company a 1.5 years prior. In Edwin's desperation to find a way to manage both caring for a child on his own and doing his job, he gets the idea to build a robot to help him. Despite being behind schedule with Fazbear, he gets to work on it. He tells David that he's building a new friend for him and Tiger. Overall, David is characterized as happy, playful, and remarkably understanding for a 4-year-old child, even if he's very sensitive and prone to crying. Edwin has no support system or real resources and is struggling to carry far too much. This is taking a huge toll on him, clouding his judgment and making him a less effective caregiver overall. To build David's friend, Edwin uses parts he can scavenge from around the factory, since he doesn't have any extra money to buy them. Wires, pistons, pieces of steel, spools, gears. He makes a torso with arms and a head. He gives the animatronic large white doll's eyes and a set of novelty chattering teeth. He codes a program for the bot to see and copy behavior. The entire process takes 22 days. He worries that David might think it looks scary, but he doesn't seem to be afraid. They name it Mimic, after the program that Edwin wrote for it. Mimic 1. It works as intended, and David loves it. He even comes up with a form of sign language to communicate with the robot because it can't speak. This buys Edwin a lot of time to work. Edwin even finds time to make improvements to David's new friend, like making his movements smoother or allowing it to do more stuff. Eventually, because Mimic always has its arm curved to mimic the way David carries his tiger plush, David asks if Mimic can have a tiger plush too. When Edwin explains that they can't afford one, David and Mimic make one out of a pile of lace. Now Mimic also has a tiger plush, and Edwin praises their clever thinking. The 2 of them spend a lot of time drawing as well, coming up with a hieroglyphic-esque writing system. Despite having more time to work, we're shown several instances of Edwin snapping at David and then regretting it. He teaches David some chores and continues tinkering with Mimic after David goes to sleep at night. It seems like he believes Mimic can solve all his problems. After working late one night, Edwin is woken up after just 2 hours of sleep by David. David wants Edwin to go outside with him and play catch, saying he'll go outside and wait for him. Edwin doesn't actually process this and just thinks that Mimic will occupy the boy. So he goes to shower and make breakfast. When Edwin calls out that breakfast is ready, he gets no response. He goes looking for David and, upon seeing the front doors of the factory standing open, begins to panic. This panic is justified as he steps out of the factory just in time to watch his son step into oncoming traffic and be hit by a van. David dies, and it takes over 2 weeks for Edwin to even partially come back to his senses. He tries to force himself through a morning routine and get back to work, but nothing feels correct. Mimic, who hadn't been deactivated, approaches him. Edwin gets a flash of memory from the time he lost after David had died. He remembers that Mimic had attempted to start carrying around David's tiger, but Edwin had taken it away from him. Mimic uses David's sign language to ask Edwin for ice cream, and seeing the Mimic acting like David sends Edwin into a rage. He grabs a metal rod and beats Mimic with it. A key line that people like to reference from this part is this. He could almost feel his murderous thoughts pouring through his muscles and transfusing through the metal into Mimic's systems. Edwin doesn't completely destroy Mimic, but he comes close. He also almost instantly regrets it when he comes out of the state, with what he's reduced to Mimic to being described as one last tragic copy of Edwin's little boy. Okay, this story kinda sucks to read. I have a 4-year-old, and the first part of the Mimic is honestly brutal. Like, I've never made it through it without crying. Thankfully, we're moving on to the part of the Mimic where grown-ups die instead. We are introduced to Dominoes, Harry Potter, and Glenn Quagmire. They're going into the factory, except now it's abandoned. And creepy. The doors close behind them and Glenn yells boo, which might imply that Glenn is the one who shut them, but maybe something else did. They weren't given very specific instructions, just clean up the mess, make repairs, and leave. It's revealed that Edwin abandoned the factory a few months prior. The costumes that are pointed out to be at Edwin's work area are Chica, Foxy, Bonnie, and a couple bright pink and yellow-green court jester costumes. They aren't quite sure what they're supposed to do, so they do the logical thing in a scary factory and split up to go explore the other 2 floors. Glenn and Harry go to the 3rd floor for some alone time, and Dominic goes alone to the 2nd. On the 2nd floor, Dominic finds a lot of Edwin's belongings in sagging water-damaged cardboard boxes. He finds a living room area with old furniture and a kitchen with a 2-person table under a boarded-up window. He wonders why all the windows are boarded up both inside and outside before realizing he smells rotting food. As he looks for the source, he realizes the fridge seems to be leaking some red-brown stank. He goes back to the hallway and checks the other rooms, finding a bathroom area before the bedroom. In the bedroom, he sees a shelf with kids' toys and books on it, which are all water-damaged and moldy. That's not all that's on the shelf, though. He finds a tool bag, like the ones he, Harry, and Glenn carry with them. Standard-issue Fazbear satchels. Dominic wonders if they aren't the first team to come in here. He looks in the bag and finds a tape recorder. The man on the recorder says that it's the week before Christmas, and that the doors had closed behind them when they entered, trapping them in the building. He wonders why the lock is on the outside of the door. At this point, Dominic hears a sound from the hallway, checks it, and sees nothing. He goes back to the recorder, and the voice from the tape says that they've been working on finishing Edwin's projects after finding a generator. Dominic hops up to go look for it, but suddenly the power comes on, and he realizes that Glenn and Harry must have found the generator. As he continues exploring, he smells something dead from a storage room that Edwin had turned into a closet. He turns around from the smell of what he assumes is dead rat, and starts looking through the rest of the 2nd floor. He starts the recorder back up as he goes on, finding nothing interesting in the remaining rooms. The recorder man goes on to explain that they've fixed some faulty wiring to get light in most rooms, and then assess the endoskeletons near the work table. They already fixed a few of them, and after a short break, they're planning to fix a really cool one they found that doesn't have any legs. They plan to give it some legs off one of the other animatronics that doesn't work. Dominic wonders why the owner of the tape left it behind as he waits for the others. When they come back down, they're arguing about whether or not Harry saw something move. They tell Dominic that they didn't see anything useful up there besides the generator. Since the generator is very thirsty, Glenn suggests that they come back tomorrow with some more supplies and fuel. Dominic then tells them about what he heard on the tape as they head back to the first level of the building and find that they, too, are trapped. It's at this point that Harry notices one of the Jester costumes has gone missing. Glenn suggests that they go back up to the second floor and find the source of the dead thing smell. He doesn't seem to think it's just a rat. Opening the refrigerator reveals a whole guy who had been mangled and stuffed into the refrigerator after being killed by near decapitation. Since Harry's being a little baby about it, they sit him down at the top of the staircase to cool off and go investigate the smell from the closet. They find, shockingly, another body hanging among the clothing, like a shirt that had been put away. Upon closer inspection, this man has been disemboweled. Suddenly they hear a scream and rush back out to find Harry's brain being pulled out of his skull by a pink and green court jester. Not like he needed it anyways. Dominic's mind just kind of shuts off at this point, so Glenn takes charge and drags Dominic with him toward the stairs, where they use the slide to get down quickly and hide in some rotting lace. Because who doesn't need a slide in their factory? After listening for a while and hearing nothing, they start looking for a weapon. As they search, Dominic finds the Jester costume laying on the floor. He then realizes that a mushroom costume near Glenn is moving. He calls out for Glenn to run, but this thing is faster than him. It grabs Glenn and slams his head into a brick wall, which, unsurprisingly, kills him instantly. Dominic runs all the way up to the third floor, hoping it'll be easier to hide. Once he gets there, he contemplates his situation. After the previous team failed, it had taken a month for Fazbear to send another, and he wasn't going to last that long. He thinks he could build something to fight the monster if he had some tools, so he sneaks down to the second floor and grabs that satchel he found with the tape recorder in it. On his way there, he notices that the mushroom costume was discarded on the stairs. When he gets back up to the third floor, another costume rises up. A ragged lion. Dominic isn't given the opportunity to run. The costume snatches him up and rips into his abdomen, killing him. So that's the Mimic. It's almost two stories in itself, the Edwin part and the Dominic part. Let's add what we learned from these to the information we have from the Storyteller. In this story, we learn a lot. There's a lot of details, and some of them have nothing to do with today's theory, so let's just do some cleaning up here. Alright, time to stop avoiding extrapolation. I just wanted to give as unbiased of a summary as possible so that I never have to do it again. Mimic absolutely killed the Fazbear employee sent in to retrieve it. Every dead body we see in that factory is because of the Mimic, and it mimicked the chores that Edwin taught David and put away the bodies. The Indo was infused with Edwin's rage when he beat the heck out of it, and now it's murdering people, but with a mimicky twist. Don't worry, I haven't forgotten that we're meant to be proving a point here. The Mimic is haunted, properly, by an actual ghost kid. That ghost child is David. Just like when Jake went on to haunt the Simon doll, or Charlie went on to haunt the puppet, David is haunting the Mimic. This one can be a bit tricky because of the mimicking aspect of the endoskeleton, but the pieces are there. After the accident, of course, the Mimic continued acting like David, but there's a detail that pushes it just enough past expected behavior. Tiger. At no point throughout the story do we see Mimic attempt to carry around David's tiger. He has his own, and even before that, he never tried taking David's. That is, until the accident. The only thing that we can be sure of between when David dies and Edwin brutalizes the Mimic Indo is that Mimic tried to carry around the wrong tiger plush. This is the only information we're given about that time, and special effort is made to slot it into the story. Why would Mimic only show interest in David's tiger after the boy's death and not before it even had one of its own? It wouldn't. This is David's influence, and it's the only time period where the endoskeleton is purely influenced by David. You see, this story gets even more devastating when you realize that, in lashing out at Mimic, Edwin was also, once again, lashing out at his son. He infuses his son's new body with agony and then abandons him, leaving him lying there broken until Fazbear sends in a team to recover their property. Edwin puts the pieces together later on, but by the time he returns, Fazbear had taken over the factory. His panic in seeing the design of the Storyteller is because it's exactly what Mimic and David would have chosen for themselves. And why would Edwin apologize to the Mimic program in the Storyteller? Doesn't it make more sense that he was trying to communicate with and apologize to his son? We don't know for sure what happened on the multiple nights that Edwin spent sneaking into the Storyteller tree. But the things we see aren't the actions of a man who simply found a program he wrote ages ago. Not only does this make for a more compelling story, it sticks to the core themes of the franchise: hauntings and tragedies. It also fits in with the rest of Scott's storytelling very well, echoing similar themes of abuse and repeating cycles. It also gives the Mimic the ability to want. Well, it doesn't give it to the Mimic itself. It's still David that wants things. But he has influence over the Mimic, even if, like in other cases of animatronics being haunted, the programming can override the things he tries to do. David haunting the Mimic is what gives it the motivation to run its scheme to trick Cassie and ruin. And the Mimic's programming, coupled with Edwin's abuse, are what make it violent. We're not out of the haunted house yet, my friends, and the Mimic's big secret is that somewhere in that endoskeleton is a confused and frightened little boy. Well, that's my theory, and if it's correct, then FNaF hasn't abandoned its roots after all. We just couldn't see it. Let me know what you think in the comments below. I look forward to reading your thoughts, and if you enjoyed the video, consider liking and subscribing. It helps a lot. Whoa, where am I? Oh wait, this is the charity livestream. I'm way too early. This isn't supposed to happen until 12 Central every day from March 21st through the 24th. If you want to help make a difference and fight cancer with us as a community, please consider joining us for these live streams. They'll be hosted over on NarrowRaven's channel. We'll be raising money in tandem with One More Night Against Cancer over the course of 4 days. I know that this community is capable of great things, and that you guys are going to make this event amazing. You don't have to be able to donate to help out either. Showing up and sharing the stream with your friends will help get eyes on this and make a real, tangible difference. I hope to see you guys there. I'll be on stream on the 22nd, and I'll be in the chat for the entirety of the rest of it. There are going to be some really amazing creators there, and I'm super excited for you guys to be there too. With that said, I want to say thank you to my channel members, Ballsfrog, Embrisk, and Theory Chum. I'll see you guys in the next one, and have a terrific day!